Hi everybody, my name is Jens Larsen. In this video I'm going to show you how you can play a diminished chord and give you a few different voicings for that. Then I'm also going to talk about how you're going to find some extensions and add those to the chords, because the diminished chords can be a little bit mysterious and can be difficult to really figure out what notes to add and what notes not to add. In that process you'll also see how I think about extensions, how I work out what extensions I can use on a chord. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar, about improvising over chord changes, interesting arpeggios and scales, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to make sure not to miss anything, then click the little bell notification icon next to the subscribe button. The type of diminished chord that I want to talk about in this video is the kind that you're going to find on the flat 3 of a major scale. So I'm not going to go into the theory really. I want to focus more on just how to play them with chord voicings and also how to add some extensions and get a little bit of freedom when you're comping with these chord voicings. This is in the key of F major, and the first chord is just the third degree, so A minor 7. Then we get the flat 3 diminished, which is the A flat diminished, and then G minor 7, which is a 2, and then the 5, and then back to the 1, which is F major 7. So there are a few ways you can play a diminished chord like this. This drop 3 voicing is one that's really useful. Of course, with any diminished chords are symmetrical. So you can actually move them around in minor thirds and then you're going to play essentially the same chord. So I could go over these as well. The thing with the drop 3 voicing is that when you play it like this, then the lowest note kind of wants to be the root very often, at least if you play it as low as this. So there you're not going to be using the inversions that much. But this is a good way of playing it. You can do the same on the next string set, so that would be an octave higher like this. And of course, you can move those around as well. Another good one is to use a drop 2 voicing, that would be this one, which of course also can be moved around. The drop 2 voicings are used as rootless voicings a little bit more often, so they're more likely to be voicings that you'll move around. Of course, once you can play the basic voicing, like this or like this, then you want to start looking at how can I make some variations on it, how can I add some other notes and some melody, and in that way make it a little bit more interesting. To do this we need to place the voicing in a scale, because we're already in the key of F major. If we look at an F major scale, then that would be this. And really what I want to do is just alter this F major scale so that I can fit the diminished chord in there. So if I look at this voicing, I have an A flat, which is not in F major, the F is in F major, B is not in F major, and D is in F major. So I need to change 2 notes in my F major scale to fit this chord in there. And there are 2 ways you can do this. So the first one is the one which is going to give us the scale that I use the most for this. We have the F, and then I'm going to change the G into a G sharp. Then the A is going to stay the same. The B flat is going to be changed into a B. And then C, D, and E can stay the same. So now I have this scale. And if I play this from A, then I have A harmonic minor. So that's a scale I already know, and that's actually the scale that's going to fit on this chord. Now that we have a scale that's sort of the context that the chord is in, it's actually not that difficult to look at what we have available as extensions. Just start by taking the notes out that are the chord tones. So that would be, in this case, G sharp. And of course I changed the A flat into a G sharp because that fits with the scale, but it's the same note in this context. So G sharp, B, D, and then F. And what I'm left with is then an A minor triad, so A, C, and E. So those are the notes that I can pick from when I want to have some extensions on top of my diminished chord. The thing is just that with this scale, then the C, if I had to add a C on top of my diminished chord here, then I'm gonna get this interval in there, and that's maybe not really what I'm looking for. So that doesn't work that well. The same goes for the A. So really there's only one note in here I can add as an extension, and that's the E. If I just take this chord and then look at what I can reach, then I have my basic chord, and then I can add the E, and I can also stretch up and have the F in here. But already with my one extension here, I can actually already do quite a lot in my first example of the chord progression, so I could turn that into this. So here I'm using different melody notes on all the chords, and you always want to see what different notes you can fit on top of any chord that's going to fit with, of course they have to fit with the chord itself, and then they also have to fit with the scale that they're in, so that you play something that really makes sense in the piece of music that you're playing, which in this case is just a chord progression in the key of F major. So that's also what I'm doing here. So an A minor shell voicing, and then I'm moving up with the melody, which actually makes it like a drop 3 voicing, and then the 11, then the diminished chord with a flat 6 here, down to the basic diminished chord, then G minor shell voicing, this short movement with a G minor drop 2 voicing, C7 flat 9 bass note, then the 7th as a melody note, and then resolving that to F major 7. So if you want to add this E or flat 6 to the different diminished voicings for the first one, it's really just changing this D into an E. For the one that I had up here, it gets a little bit more complicated and it's a little bit less practical, because the D is here and we're going to change that into an E here, and then we have this one, which sounds really cool, but it's not that easy to use. Another one that's really useful here is if we start looking at the drop 2 voicings and then on the top string set, and then here thinking more sort of from a rootless perspective where we don't actually have the A flat in the root, right, in the bass, then we get this one, which is a really practical voicing to have as well. So in this case we only have one extension available for our diminished chord, but actually if we look at another scale choice for the diminished chord, then we can sort of access one more. It's going to be a little bit further away in terms of sound, and also I don't think you're really gonna, maybe I can think of one standard where you can find this in the melody, so it is in that respect a little bit further away. The idea here is that if we try to find another scale for our A flat diminished, then starting with the F major scale, just one octave here, or no, not even, up to the 7th, and then I need to fit my A flat diminished here in it, and instead of, so I'm going to start on F, go to G, and then instead of the A I'm going to use A flat, and instead of the B flat I'm going to use a B, and then C, D and E are the same. So now I have this scale. And this scale, if I play it from C, is C harmonic major. And this scale will fit this diminished chord, and it has another note that we can use as an extension because it has a G. So if we do the same as I did with the A harmonic minor scale and just split it up into the chord tones of the diminished chord, so A flat, B, D and F, and then what's left, which in this case is then a C major triad, so C, E and G, then now I have E, which works as a nice extension, and I also have a G, which works really well as well. Of course, there are several ways that you can add the G to the chord voicings. So if we take this A flat diminished chord voicing, I can use the G instead of the F, and then I have this, which is really just a G major triad over an A flat bass note. And if we take the drop 2 voicing up here, then that will be this, which is again just A flat bass note, G major triad, and you kind of want to check that out for this version of it, which is really the same voicing, just on another string set. So you have this voicing. If I use these diminished voicings when I'm playing through my progression, then that sounds like this. So as you can tell here, I'm playing drop 2 voicings. I'm not really playing the root, even though I'm starting with an A minor that does actually have the root as the lowest note. So the first is just A minor, adding an 11 on top. Then we get, for this A flat diminished, we get first this voicing, where we have the G in there, and then the one with the E on top, then a G minor 9, and then a C7 flat 9, which is actually also a diminished voicing. And then back to this A minor voicing that's here working also as an F major 9 voicing. A version of the progression where I'm using the lower drop 3 voicings could sound something like this. So here I'm starting with an A minor shell voicing, then adding the D on top, going up to the A flat diminished with first the E in the melody, and then moving that melody down to a D. And then I'm just barring here. So another way of adding the G in this case is to just put it on the top string so that we have an extra note on top of the original drop 3 voicing here. And moving from the G to the F, and then down to a G minor 7, repeating the bass note just to keep the groove movement moving. C7, flat 9, another bass note, and then F major 7. And then I'm sort of embellishing this with some harmonics. So the idea here is that these notes, so like A, D, and G, work really well with the F as an F6-9, and I'm also adding the 7th, which is the E here. As you can tell, I'm not a huge fan of using the diminished scale on diminished chords, which may sound strange. In fact, I find that the diminished scale is sort of a mathematical or a systematic construction, so it doesn't actually belong in sort of a tonal song where we have, in this case, like a cadence that's clearly in the key of F major, and it doesn't really fit. There's always going to be a few notes that are not going to sound that great in there, so then it makes more sense to just start with the key and then alter the notes of that scale into something that we can use, and then you're going to have something that's going to fit a little bit better with the context that we're playing. It does kind of make sense also if you look at what notes are used in the melody over diminished chords. If you're checking out standards, that usually they're not really coming out of the diminished scale at all. And it is maybe something that's a little bit overlooked in this whole discussion with diminished chords, because we say diminished chord and then immediately we think that we have to use diminished scale, and that's maybe not entirely true. But let me know what you think, and also let me know what you do with diminished chords and how you work with them. And of course, if you have a great idea for some extensions or some voicings that work really well, then leave a comment on that as well. Usually there's really a lot happening in terms of useful information in the comments of my videos, and it's actually a place where I also learn quite a lot. So if you have something to share, then please leave a comment. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar and this is the first time you see one of my videos, then subscribe to my channel. The videos that I publish here every week are on finding some solid methods and good strategies to explore all the interesting things about jazz guitar and improvisation. If you like this video and you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page. It's because of the support that I get from my patrons that I can keep on publishing videos every week, and I'm very grateful for that. And if you want to join us over on Patreon, I can also give you something in return for your support. That's about it for this week. Thank you for watching, and until next week.